So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it to die? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
All right, well, that was human. Well, that wasn't human error. It was dinosaur error. But like, you just call that kind of thing. Yeah, theropod error. Well, theropod error is dinosaur error.
Oh
my goodness. Oh, we got to drink twice for Godzilla already? My goodness. All right, well, first we're going to take a couple drinks for Godzilla if you're playing along, and we're going to talk about the drinking rules soon. Take a couple drinks. And there's a third one. All right. So, now that we've already had three drinks triggered, there you go. Welcome to Jackson with Jackson 14, I think it was, yes. To Transitional would be Transitional, based on the fact that Dr. Charles Jackson here, Bad Jackson, has basically made that argument many, many times. Like, this is so ape-like that it can't be human, even though it has these human-y features. It's too transitional. Sorry, boys. It's like, yeah, that's not how anything works. But anyway, I don't actually think we're going to be talking about that in this particular episode. Also, Jackson, you're getting a whole lot of noise. Do you have your noise gate up?
My what?
Noise gate.
Is it just my... There are no gates in this room. Nor Matt gates.
Wow.
But,
oh, hey, take another drink for Godzilla. So, anyway. For those of you who might be new, here on Diaper Dino's channel on Tuesday nights, we play a bit of a drinking game while we basically debunk low-tier creationists. And the idea behind the drinking game... Oh my goodness, Take another drink for Godzilla. The reason that we take the drinks is basically because these are so low-tier that I can do this while fairly intoxicated. Anyway, Jackson, how are you real quick? And then we'll get into the drinking rules.
Oh, I'm doing just fine. Thank you. Glad to be here.
All right. So, we will take a drink whenever the creationist here, Dr. Charles Jackson, Bad Jackson, says something so stupid we just kind of have to. If he gets a point of fact correct, and it's not just a quotation from somebody, he has to actually have it in his own brain and say it, then we take a drink for that. If he tells a joke that doesn't land, or if he tells a story that we're pretty darn sure didn't actually happen, take a drink. We'll also take a drink anytime that he mentions the National Socialist German Workers' Party or prominent members thereof or their various activities, especially during the 1930s and 40s. If you don't know what any of that is, I mean, Google National Socialism. It'll pop up, I promise. Let's see, we also take a drink anytime that one of us can successfully predict what his next point is, where it's not just obvious, right? Like if he's going to say, oh, humans are a just different kind from chimpanzees. Well, of course he is. He's a young Earth creationist. They all have to say that. But if it's like, oh, I don't know, where's he going to go? We get it right and take a drink for that. But also, there are a few other things. As you've already heard, if Godzilla pops in, we'll take a drink for that. That's semi-random. Same thing for Mothra, which also might be audible. But also, if you are a channel member and you send a super chat or a channel membership milestone chat with any of the kaiju emojis, because we have Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, then we will take a drink for that. Also, if anyone, channel member or not, sends a super chat to the effect that Answers in Genesis or AIG are a bag of dicks, take a drink for that, because of their, at least historical tendency to copyright claim anyone using any of their footage, even when they themselves are using fair use in the video that you're using. So, you know, that's fun. And also we have our first such milestone chat. Too Young to Feel This Old, who's been a member for 4 months at the Seropsid level, thank you very much, says AIG is a bag of weens. So we'll take a drink for that. Last but not least, unless I'm forgetting one, which I might be, if anyone gifts channel memberships, we'll take a drink for each membership gifted. Those can be gifted in packs of 1 or 5. So, I mean, if you want to have me take 5 drinks in a row and gift 5 channel memberships, It's definitely the only time that I'm just going to sit here and take 5 drinks. I guess unless just, Godzilla goes crazy. But yeah, I think that covers it. If you do want to have access to those emojis that I mentioned, channel membership, there is a join button. Joining starts at $1.99. Oh, and there's Mothra. And Benthoven, who's been a member for 29 months at the tetrapod level, says, Godzilla, AIG are a bag of Kent Hovens. Yeah, that's going to count. So that's a couple drinks. One for Mothra, one for that membership chat. All right. So when last we left off... Oh, my goodness. It's Mothra again. I'm going to finish this beer before we even get to Charles Jackson. And, okay, David B. 22585, who's been a member at the level of Amniote for 4 months, says, AIG, it is said, is a satchel of objects which are given head, sitting here watching how the Grinch stole Christmas with the family. Very nice. Take a drink for that. Okay, so as I was saying, when last we left off, Dr. Charles Jackson was telling us that the fact that the movie Ice Age, or I guess the Ice Age franchise, because it's like, what, 5 movies or something? Is evolutionist propaganda to make people think that Ice Age humans were dumb because in the movie, the humans don't talk, but the animals do. Because apparently, Ice Age is how the evil evolutionists are really trying to get evolution into your kids' brains by making them think that woolly mammoths could talk like humans. Because that's definitely the message most people are taking away from that movie. It was one of the dumbest things either me or Good Jackson had ever heard. So, yeah.
It was pretty special.
Yeah, it was... Because at first he's like, have you noticed how they make the humans dumb and the animals smart in movies? And we're both like, no. What are you talking about? So that's where we left off. We'll see where Dr. Charles Jackson goes from here. We're actually in the Q&A section of this video, but that lasts apparently like 28 or 29 minutes or something. So it's a very long Q&A. But if he does start preaching, then we'll cut it off. But here we go.
According to evolution's story, at what point did animal rights and human rights become 2 separate things?
Oh, actually, we did talk about that last time. And the thing is, human rights didn't come about as a concept until fairly recently in human history as a whole. And so the idea of having animal rights is even more recent. So I guess you could say they became 2 different things, probably in like the 20th century when humans came up with the idea that maybe non-human animals should have rights. I guess. Because the thing is, whether you're a natural rights theorist or whether you're like rights come from a divine source or rights are simply defined by society or governments or whatever, no matter which of those ideas you take, rights in terms of their actual on-the-ground reality, do you have this right or not, in terms of actually have the ability to exercise this right, it's going to come down to what the people around you say you have. And importantly, the people around you who can use violence to enforce their ideas, right? So in most places, that's going to be the government. Do they think you have the right? Then you do. Do they not think it? Then no matter what you think about your rights, you don't. Sorry, sovereign citizens. All right. Jackson, did you have anything to add there?
Sounds good.
Okay.
The idea that ancient people were dumber, oh man, we still can't figure out how they built the Great Pyramid of Giza.
We can. Okay. But first I'm going to take a drink, because this is just a weird, long... It's been a stupid point for a long time, used by like ancient aliens types and ancient high technology types, and even like Nephilim conspiracy theories having to do with someone who spent way too much time reading the books of Enoch. So look, we don't have a definitive answer as to which of several viable techniques were used to make the pyramids. But that's sort of like if I arrive in a car to your house and you know that there's like 4 more or less equivalent ways that I could have driven from my place to your place. And then you say, well, it's unexplainable how Dapper got to my place in the car. No, it's not. You just don't know which of 4 reasonable options it was. That doesn't mean I couldn't have done it. That means I have multiple options and you just don't know which one it was. Those aren't the same, right? So, yeah.
These people invented geometry, for goodness sake. I think
Kind of. The Egyptians actually learned a lot of geometry from the Greeks. The Greeks are closer to having invented geometry, but even then, it was independently invented in numerous places. But, I mean, yeah, the Egyptians and the Greeks were smart. It's like people today are smart.
they were smarter than us.
No, we're going to take a drink for that. There is no reason to think that they were smarter than current people. There's a whole bunch of problems with this idea, right? First, intelligence is super hard to define and even harder to measure, right? It's very difficult. You can make broad generalizations, like you can say squirrels are not as intelligent as humans. And yeah, that seems reasonable. But like, if you say, okay, who's smarter, Dr. Charles Jackson or a squirrel? Well, it becomes a little bit harder to say. Anyway, but see, on a more serious note, like seriously, it's very hard to just measure intelligence and comparing them across humans, right? Except for like the most broad and obvious cases. Like if you have a serious intellectual impairment, then okay, that might be easy to assess. But like, if one guy over here is not great at, you know, language use or spelling, but is pretty darn good at music, and then some woman over there is, you know, an expert poet, but she's really bad at, I don't know, drawing. I mean, does that make her dumb and him smart, or vice versa? I don't know. It's hard to measure. So in order to say that people in the past were smarter than people are today, would have to do two things. You would have to have a reliable way to measure intelligence in the first place, and then you'd have to have a reliable way to actually apply it to the past. And good luck with either of those. But, yeah. And Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 19 months at the Amniot level, says, I'll post the meme to your Discord. You know, the one that says, just because white people can't figure it out doesn't mean it was aliens. Yeah, that's part of the thing with the pyramids. That's a pretty big trope in a lot of pseudo-archaeology. It's like, well, these people couldn't have figured it out. It's like, why not? And there's no good answer. And they never say that about, like, you know, medieval cathedrals. So, yeah. But they'll say it about, like, Mesoamerican pyramids made around the same time as medieval cathedrals. Curious, huh?
Only, like, example of a white person thing that gets claimed for aliens is, like, Stonehenge, that I can think of.
Yep, Stonehenge is... Sometimes other henges and dolmens and things like that from, like Mesolithic Europe are also claimed. But, like, you know why we call it Mesolithic? You know why we call it the Mesolithic? Because it's part of the Stone Age, when people were making things out of stone. Like all those things are made of. Find me, like, a Mesolithic, like, steel frame building. Then I might start thinking about aliens.
There's plenty of evidence that we are gotten a J-curve of dumber and dumber.
Plenty of evidence. All right, guys. I'm going to go ahead and make a prediction that we're not going to see any such evidence. What do you think, Jackson?
Looks like we are about to see an AIG cartoon.
Yes, it does. Dan Latha is going to come through with this cartoon.
The only reason we have effective technology is because of the past. We haven't invented anything new in 50 years.
We haven't invented anything new in 50 years. Okay. let's just check, right? You know what? Let's do this. Let's do 2022 inventions. Okay. Color-changing cars were invented in 2022. A new kind of humanoid robot was invented in 2022. Let's see. New kinds of foldable smartphones were invented in 2022. A COVID-19 breathalyzer test was invented in 2022.
Oh, pretty cool.
Let's see. There's a new skydiving vehicle that was invented in 2022. Let's see. Some of these aren't so much inventions, like there's stuff like fancy refrigerator door, but still, like...
Dapper.
Yeah.
If you just pretend those things don't exist, then they don't.
Good point. I had not thought about that.
Here you go.
Yeah.
You have me.
So Tiktaalik for 90 Argentinian peso says, going to buy alcohol so I can endure Badsim. Good luck. Luck with that. So yeah, I'm just gonna take a drink for we haven't invented anything in the last 50 years. Okay. That's dumb.
Nothing.
Oh, I forgot to
Nothing
hit the-
new.
oh.
What about cell phones, Dr. Jackson? A cell phone is a miniaturization of Marconi's wireless, Tesla's wireless, Alexander Graham Bell's telephone.
Okay, so is the line that anyone who invents anything based on previous technology doesn't count as inventing something new? Because in that case, I don't think we've ever invented anything new. Since, like, the first monkey hit a piece of stone with a different piece of stone and noticed that one of them was sharp.
That's, you know what, actually, Dapper? I think this argument makes perfect sense.
Oh?
Since he's a creationist,
Oh.
new things don't evolve. They are only derivations on existing things.
That's kind of what evolution is, you know.
That's like what it is for kinds, right? Nothing new is ever... You have the very first thing that's created by God, right?
Look,
Then everything that varies, whatever, diversifies from that. It's just a derivation on that one thing. I think it actually makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Also, Sir Equinox points out, Tesla used silicon microchips? I doubt it. I doubt it very much. Like, I'm just taking a drink, because I can't with it. They're all just variations on previous technology. Yeah, that's how invention works, you dumbass.
And
Also, in the past 50 years, do you know how long it took for humans to invent a yoke so that a horse could plow a field instead of an ox? Dude, it was like 5,000 years from the beginning of agriculture. Like, don't give me this, like, oh, it has been 50 years. Even if that were true, do you know how slowly the ancient people invented things? Absurdly slowly. For most of human history, most people's lifestyle would have been indistinguishable from their great-great-grandparents' lifestyle. Anyone who's right now, I'm gonna make it a poll. Here we go. Is your lifestyle in 2022 identical to that of any of your great-great-grandparents? And if any of you say yes, I know you're lying. So I'm gonna ask it. There you go. There's a poll now.
Michael Faraday's batteries, and also
Hey, batteries are just an extension of work done by people like Benjamin Franklin, who was working on electricity early on. So,
the computer chip is a transistor. It's a modified...
did actually talk about this a little bit. It's not. Look, saying a computer chip is a transistor is like saying a human is a cell. No. It's made up of cells at the smallest level, but it's not a cell.
transistor. Where are all the hoverboards? And well, those don't really work now, do they? Where are particle beam weapons and
What's
Article-
like boomer humor right there?
Yeah. Actually, you know what? I think that was a joke that didn't land. I'm gonna take a drink for it. When it comes to particle beam weapons, those are already in testing. Those have already been invented. They're mostly for air-to-surface defense right now. They're not usually like offensive weapons, but you know what? Shooting down missiles on its way to your ship is a pretty valuable thing to do. And it's a weapon because it's a destructive force that's directed at a target, which is then damaged or destroyed. So, yeah, I mean, directed energy and beam weapons are already a thing, buddy. That you don't know that doesn't mean that they don't count.
Only goes to the past, not the future, Dapper. You can't blame him for not knowing things.
Of course. I love that he's like, where's this? Names things that already exist. It's like, well, they're over there. You just didn't look very hard. What do you want?
Take me to the transitional fossils. Alright, well, they're at the museum. No, I want you to bring them here.
Right.
We can't. They're in a box.
Yes.
I demand you bring them here to me.
They're radioactive. You could die. I don't care.
Say we give him
time
what he
travel
wants.
Well, yeah.
and warp and transporters and all that. We did get action at a distance, Hawking radiation and things like that.
Hawking radiation is action at a distance? I'm going to take a drink and we're going to talk about action at a distance. Okay, so the idea of action at a distance, right, is that for the most part, the universe seems to obey this law of locality or localism. You can phrase it in a few different ways, right? Which is the idea that basically for things to interact, they kind of have to touch, right? Now, they can have intermediate things that transfer between them that then actually do the touching, right? So, like, you don't touch someone directly when you speak to them. But what you do is you touch the air that then vibrates until it touches their ear parts. And then that touches their brain, which then they understand. And then they touch the air back. And, you know, then the air reaches your ear. And then that touches your brain. Okay. So there's no action at a distance there, right? Because everything actually has a continuous chain of transmission through actual physical media. Okay. When light comes to you, photons physically go from one point to another to get to you, even if they travel through the vacuum of space. But what about things like gravity? Because in Newtonian gravity, it seems like things are just reaching out without any intermediary and affecting other things. Well, it turns out that Einstein largely solved this when he realized that it was actually space-time and objects aren't actually being pulled directly by other objects. They're actually following, there we go, geodesics in space-time that's been curved by other objects. But the geodesic they're following is entirely local, right? They only respond to the local curvature of space where they are at that time. So it turns out it's actually not action at a distance. But then there are certain phenomena in quantum physics that seem like action at a distance, like quantum entanglement. So for instance, if you have spin-entangled particles, and then you send one of them through a spin detector, so such that, say, you have it so that upspin is directed to the left and downspin is directed to the right in your test chamber. Okay, cool. By doing that, you immediately know what spin the entangled particle has, no matter how far away it is, even if it's like 40 light years away. But the problem there is that you can't actually use this to affect things 40 light years away. You can't send a message because you can't actually affect which spin state the particle is going to take without breaking the entanglement. So you still don't actually end up with action at a distance. So I don't know why Dr. Charles Jackson is bringing up action at a distance and teleporters and things that are probably just impossible. But I don't know, Dr. Charles Jackson, tell you what, if you want teleporters, start working on it. But if they're impossible, I don't think that's a problem for the intelligence of humans, right? Humans haven't gotten smart enough to make impossible things yet, so therefore God exists and created humans apart from apes. You're missing a few steps in your logic there. Kerry Bronson for $5 says, by his standard, God didn't create man. After all, Adam was nominally assembled from pre-existing materials, rearranged under pre-existing ideas. Yeah, that's a good point. By this definition, yeah, God didn't actually create man. Vandelli, 1998, who's been a member for 26 months at the Amiot level, first sends some clinking champagne glasses. Here's to Dapper and Jackson, who watch creationists unfiltered so we don't have to. Yes. All right. Here we go.
But take a family from the year 1900 and bring them to the 1950s.
Why would we do that? That's kidnapping.
Well, maybe they asked to go.
Only if they're consenting. All right, fine. We took them to the 1950s. Then what?
Yeah. Well, first, Theros Rex asks for $5. How dumb is Jackson tonight on a scale from Mr. Batman to Jackson? Well, I mean, he's definitely close to a Jackson, but he's getting... This is some of the dumbest things I've ever heard Charles Jackson say, I'll be honest. Like, his weird thing about, like, evolution and bacteria doesn't count was dumb, but I don't think it was as dumb as if humans don't invent teleporters, then they used to be smarter in the past.
Is it dumb or just malicious to when he said or when he was giving out like bad medical advice? Would you say that was dumb?
Oh, that's a good point.
Would you just say that was malicious? I don't know.
So the thing is, I don't actually think he was
I feel
malicious.
like he believed it.
Yeah, I think he believed it, and it was certainly dumb. It's certainly more dangerous than this, but I'm not sure if it's dumber than this. Because the thing is,
okay,
like, there's some logic to the idea that broad-spectrum antibiotics would cure most bacterial infections in the short term, at least.
Yeah.
Like, there's a train of logic I can follow. I can't follow, unless we have teleporters from warp drive, humans are stupider than they were before they had indoor plumbing. Like, I just can't follow that logic, man. By the way, Too Young to Feel This Old says the kiddos, Alaric and Aster are their names, are begging me to tell you they say hi. Well, hello, Alaric and Aster. I hope that you are all having, or both, I don't know, are having a wonderful night. And thank you to Too Young to Feel This Old for the super chat. It is greatly appreciated. Which actually...
I have a
question.
I have a question for Too Young to Feel This Old. What was the reasoning behind the name Alaric? Curiosity.
Well, Too Young to Feel This Old, tag me if you want to answer that, unless you super chat, in which case it won't matter because it'll come up anyway. But do tag me if you want to answer that, so that way I can make sure I see it. Also, guys, that means that we're now 110 away from the next Feather Dapper episode. So if you want more Feathery Dapper, there you go. All right.
My gosh, electric lights, moving pictures, talk.
Look.
If a
modern smartphone is the same as like Tesla's wireless power, then my goodness, is a light bulb not a new invention? Are you kidding me? I'm taking a drink. Seriously, you know what electric light bulbs are? It's literally just heat loss. You made a resistor, dude, and you got it to be hot enough to incandesce. Electricity makes things Hot. That's not, like, news. Like, seriously, that is more. It is. But that's less of a new invention than a cell phone is, right? Like, that's just like, ooh, things get hot when electricity go. Ooh, if we put inert gas around hot thing, it won't burn. Ooh, if it gets hot enough, it'll make light. Yeah. Yeah, that's how those things work.
Like, you know, he probably like just learned about how these things work right before this talk, and now he's showing off his knowledge.
Yeah, he just went through like 8th grade science class, and he was like, guys, I know how light bulbs work. You'll never believe it. It's like he's
very excited to tell us about the light bulbs.
I just can't believe that Charles Jackson is sitting here saying cell phones aren't a new invention because Tesla had a wireless power transmission. But then, and Edison had invented the wired telephone. But then he's like, but light bulbs, that's totally brand new. No, that's not at all derived from previous technologies. What is happening right now? Oh my god. All right, we're going to hit play. I just can't with this.
Telephones, radio.
You already said telephones, dude.
Radios, nuclear power.
Hey,
why is he still going?
I don't know. We're just naming random things that have existed and been invented in various
Curtains,
times.
Cameras, chairs, table.
Children? It's just children. Goop23 says for $5.
He's just like...
Sorry, go ahead. Oh, okay. Goop23 for $5 says, love to hear him complain about stagnant technology while I play Pokemon on the current gen console. Right? Too Young to Feel This Old says it was Vampire Diaries and it was their wife's idea.
I knew it.
There you go.
Aha. I am also currently watching that, so I approve and appreciate. Tip's hat.
I have not seen it, so
approve and appreciate.
For $4.99, Vandalia 1998 says next Jackson will teach us to not get in cars with strangers, and soap and water clean your hands. Yeah, to continue with the 4th grade education that we're getting here.
Just like walks down to the audience and is like, guys, have you tried this thing called soap?
Right.
Usually put it right next to sinks in the bathroom.
Oh, he said dishwashers. But dishwashers are just a combination of electric motors, pumps, and soap. Oh, and a metal box and some wheels. Those are all previously existing things. That's not a new invention, Dr. Jackson. I'm taking a drink. How absurd all of this is. Which actually means I have to crack open my next beer, which is okay, because we're already past a half an hour, so I'm on pace. But like, man. This one, by the way, is an amber ale from Fat Tire. Not sponsored.
And television sets and everything and garbage disposals. Now, okay, take somebody from the
garbage disposal, because that's not just an electric motor with blades. That's one of the things about this. If you're going to set up your idea that anything that's just building on previous technology doesn't count, don't list a whole bunch of things that are just obvious collections of previous technologies, right? But then there's the problem. What isn't? All right, here.
1950s, say Ozzie and Harriet, and bring them to today. All they have to do is learn how to push buttons to make a phone call. Dishwashers.
I'm sorry, so does user accessibility getting better mean that inventions didn't occur? Because that's what I'm hearing. Inventions that are too intuitive or too easy to learn how to use just don't count. Is that the argument we're going with?
Even microwaves, we had microwave radiation in the 1940s.
Oh, we had microwave radiation long before that, buddy. What are you talking about? Theros Rex for $2 says, been here 4 minutes, I'm sad I'm not drinking tonight. Yeah, I feel that, except I am drinking, but I know how you feel, man. There are times when I'm like, gee, I should have had some beer for this.
It's just if you wanted a microwave oven, it was going to cost you $500,000, you know. And I predicted when microwaves became very popular to my students, I said, you watch. They'll have this thing where you put it in there, and it can make something cold real quick, too. And then
so, okay, I'm just going to drink for Dr. Charles Jackson who doesn't understand thermodynamics. So, wait, Jackson, you want to talk about the thermodynamics?
It says there's going to be a thing where we put, like, food in and makes it cold. Gets up, goes into kitchen. Let me see if we have any objects in here that already accomplish that job.
It's even worse, though, because he wants the coldening version of the microwave oven, right? He wants, like, the microwave freezer. But here's the problem. You know what happens when you add radiation to things? They get hot, which maybe, to be fair, maybe Charles Jackson doesn't actually know that, because being a young Earth creationist, he would have to contend with a heat problem if radiation made things hotter and accelerated nuclear decay happened during the flood, which he probably does think happened. But if you just pretend that radiation can also make things colder, maybe that's the solution to the heat problem. So,
inverse radiation problem. Actually.
Caloritellian, who's been a member at the level of Amnio for 5 months, says, it's a real tough contest, but this may be the dumbest argument I've heard in months. With a Godzilla, a Mothra, and a Ghidorah emoji, so we take a drink. Yeah, so here's the problem with having a cold version of the microwave. It violates the laws of thermodynamics, and it actually violates them. Not the silly way that creationists pretend that evolution does. The real way that physicists recognize, which is why no one has invented it. So, yeah. Now, if you want to say, oh, what about laser cooling? Okay, that's a thing, but it uses things like interference, and it can cool, like, you know, individual atoms. You can't actually use lasers to cool bulk matter.
That was in the 80s, I told my classes that, and in the 90s they did.
Oh, did they? Was it a freezer? Because if it's anything other than, like, your freezer, I'm calling BS.
But that costs like $50,000 they use.
Okay, here, you know what? We're just going to look up cold microwave. Oh, literally the first result on Google is, why doesn't a reverse microwave for cooling food exist? Here we go. Okay. The first answer is, you know, well, you could do it with, like, liquid nitrogen, but that's super dangerous. And then the next thing is, Yeah, the second law of thermodynamics. Literally the first answer after like, well, liquid nitrogen could do it, but that's dangerous. Although I will say, if you ever get liquid nitrogen, put some of those otter pops in it, because you will get amorphous ice, which is a different phase of ice than what you're used to, which is ice 1. And I can promise you that an amorphous ice otter pop will be the best otter pop that you have ever had. I've had them. More than I would care to admit because of how awesome they were. Although you do have to let them warm up a bit, because if you eat them immediately, they will be as cold as liquid nitrogen, which will like seriously damage your mouth. But yeah, Jackson, did you know about amorphous ice?
I don't think so.
Yeah, if ice...
It's been a very long time since I've anything like dipped in liquid nitrogen.
Well, so the thing with ice is if it freezes, or if the water freezes faster than the crystals can form, the water molecules just freeze in place, and so there's no actual crystals. But the problem for me with otter pops, right, is that they freeze so slowly that they're always full of jagged ice crystals with like little bits of like hyper concentrated juice between them, which then always, whenever I ate them as a kid, like it would not like a big deal, but it would give me a little like crunchy and sharp, right? But you get that amorphous ice, and it is smooth all the way through. There are absolutely no little pockets of extra concentration or anything like that. It's delicious. All right. By the way, we've got, let's see, a few super chats. Vandelli 1998 for $4.99 says, well, they do believe that right after all this fast plate tectonics we had in an ice age, so maybe they think this microwave freezer is possible. I mean, look, it's just as ridiculous, so yeah, possibly. Carrie Bronson says, what is a fridge if not just a heat pump? Not new, yep. And Apocalypse Meow for $4.99 says, for feathers, and then sends 3 feather emojis. Well, if you want a feather update, we are currently 85 away from feathers. So, there you go.
Laser beams to slow down the atom's vibration. So,
oh my goodness, you can't use that to cool down your food, you moron.
He was talking about the laser but
yeah, he was talking about laser cooling. The thing is,
but he thinks it can be used on food.
Yeah, the thing is, if you want to cool something down with laser cooling, right? The size of the object has to be around the same kind of size as the wavelength you're using to cool it with, and it also has to be basically microscopic, because otherwise the energy is going to be too low energy to actually hold that thing in place, right? Like you can't use a radio wave laser beam cool something down because it's too low energy. Which means the only things we can use to cool down, with laser coolers to cool down, are like, a few atoms. You literally cannot cool down your food with laser beams. It will just heat it up. And very localized, right? It'll cause a little tiny burn spot on your food. Savage Cobra for $5 says AIG is a cul-de-sac of Ypsilanti water towers. I know what you're going for. I'm not sure I get it, but we're gonna go for it anyway because I'm super generous when it comes to those. Even if I don't get it, yeah. Classy Chew says, for $4.99, I don't normally catch the streams, but I wanted to let you know that I like your stuff and it helps me tolerate work. 1 more hour to go, Revenant Rye. Well, thank you very much, and I'm really glad when I hear that people are enjoying these and that like they help people through work or stressful times, or that like they put me on the background while they do chores. I love all that because you know what? I want to be someone who can help out, right? I want this to be entertaining for people, help them get through tough spots. Anyway, here we go.
I really think you can make a case that we're getting dumber, and that would make sense with the...
Okay, so the case you're making is that because current inventions are based on previous inventions, like all inventions have been throughout all of history, that the people who currently can make supercomputers, smartphones, and color-changing car paint are definitely dumber than the people who hadn't figured out the wheel yet and tried to build a pyramid out of big brick of stone. That's the contention here. Now, like I said, I'm not saying that the people who built the pyramids were stupid. I don't think they were. But when your argument is that because smartphones are a continuation of other technology, that the people who make them are dumber than the people who made the pyramids, yeah, sorry, that's that's not really a viable argument.
Accumulation of mutations. But, okay, the question, I want to get to the question the person asked, though. Here you go. Here
Imagine that, answering the actual question.
is the depiction that we have. Now, okay, I'm sorry. Here's a Neanderthal skull, and in the background, a human skull like yours or mine. We depicted Neanderthals as ape.
Notice, he just said that Neanderthals aren't humans, which contradicts what he said earlier.
Ape-like people in the past, but now a new museum display.
I'm just drinking for ape-like people. You know who's an ape-like person? Everyone. Because guess what? You're an ape. If you're a human. I'm taking a drink. Saying an ape-like person is like saying a canine-like dog or a reptile-like lizard. It's just a nonsense phrase. You could say a basal ape. Humans who are more basal. TM Wing says, but can you explain how the pyramids evolved, Dapper? No, I cannot explain how the pyramids evolved. See, when a mommy pyramid and a daddy pyramid really love each other, or are just really, really libidinous, I'm not going to finish. Vandali in 1998 for $4.99 said, once we learned to make bronze from tin and copper, it was all downhill from there. Well, that's because mines are downhill, right? Because you have to start at the top. No, I'm kidding. Anyway, here we go.
They show Neanderthals as really looking more like Scotsmen.
What? Scotsman? That's a new one for me, but okay.
Why does the way that they're drawn matter?
I don't know, but also, how are they like Scotsmen? Were they wearing kilts? Were they tossing cabers? Were they playing golf? What's happening right now?
And like I said, they had bigger brains than us.
That's true, although their brains were arranged differently, so it's not clear that they had significantly higher levels of cognition in particular ways.
Now realize Neanderthal fossils have been found in...
Oh, he's not going to explain the Scotsman thing, he's just going to say it. I have to drink, I just can't figure this out.
What does it all mean, Dapper?
I don't know. Neanderthals are all Scottish now, I guess. Guys, if any of you are artists, start drawing Neanderthals in kilts, tossing cabers, and send it to me on Twitter. Because I want to see your renditions of Neanderthals in kilts tossing capers. I really do. I'm so confused by this whole thing.
Israel and all over the place, but mostly they're famous for being in Ice Age, Middle and Northern Europe. Now, once the Ice Age ended, the other groups, tribes of humans moved into the area and outcompeted the Neanderthals. The Neanderthals were squatly built, broad nasal passages, perfect for cold weather. They're body built.
Dr. Tapioca Weasel, who's been a member for 9 months at the diapsid level, says, so you aren't wrong, but only if 1 times 10 to the 8th atoms is a few atoms, which is totally valid. I mean, I would call that a small number of atoms. I mean, a mole for me is a small number of atoms, and that's a much bigger number. I will also say that laser cooling of macroscopic drum-like objects called microresonators has kind of been done. That sounds interesting, and I would like to know more about that. But Dr. Tapioca Weasel, can you confirm or deny, could I heat up my leftover mashed potatoes, cool down my, let's say, my scaldingly hot coffee to a drinkable temperature? Could I do that with lasers? Got a cup of coffee, and I want this to go from 100 Celsius to like 80. Could I do that with lasers? Faster than just letting it sit out in it.
Were perfect for cold weather. The insertion and origin of their muscles made them very strong, building lean-tos and hunting parties to go kill giant ground sloths and mastodons or mammoths and things like that.
I mean, yeah, I don't think anyone is arguing that Neanderthals weren't different from Homo sapiens.
The depiction of Neanderthal life now is more like this.
Oh, okay. Monkey from Data says there was a genetic study that suggested some Neanderthals were redheads. That's probably the Scotsman connection. He might also be thinking of big burly Scots in Highland games. Well, I mean, that's why I went to caber tossing, right? But, like, still, it's weird. The redhead thing, maybe, but I doubt he knows that. And by the way, Dr. Tapioca Weasel has answered my question about coffee with, no, not with any known conceivable mechanism. All right.
And I did not get this from any creationist organization. I don't quote from creationists. I very rarely do. I'll make a big deal out of it when I do. Here's a Neanderthal couple. You know, look, Shona, there's a star. You know, they're still. We didn't have Facebook back then, so this is how they picked their mates.
What is happening right now? Did he just, like, whiplash turn into his hypothetical version of, like Neanderthal Tinder by looking at... I don't even know what he's talking about.
He unlocked a part of his brain that had been dormant for, like, 20,000 years, Dapper. That's what happened just now.
Oh, did he say that they were
It's in our DNA.
Did he say Neanderthals were killing ground sloths? Did I miss that? Because no, they were not.
Did he say that? Oh, he may have.
Let's reverse a little bit. Hope that it doesn't crash.
And look at you. Here's a Neanderthal couple.
Which of course it does.
Look, Shona, there's a star. You know, they're still. We didn't have Facebook back then, so this is how they picked their mates. And look, there's a fire in a family. We know they did hunting parties. They were intelligent and well organized and civilized people. Made clothing and all that kind of stuff.
We're civilized. Okay. Did they put their forks on the correct side of the dinner plate?
Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in Bristol, England. Neanderthals are often portrayed as more primitive. 2006.
And yeah,
this has huge implications. The differences between Neanderthals and humans may have.
All right. Well, while I get that back up, Jackson, you have anything to add about that? Because I'm going to bring that video.
I mean, if he did in fact say. And it went right past me, but if he did in fact say that Neanderthals clubbed ground sloths, that did not happen.
Is a transistor. It's
as far as we're aware, that did not happen.
Yeah.
Because ground sloths are in South America and nearby islands, whereas
popular to my
Neanderthals in Eurasia, which is quite removed from South America.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to reshare with you. So give me a... We're doing... All right, sorry about that, everybody.
moved into the area and outcompeted the Neanderthals.
No, we already had that.
Kill giant ground sloths and
Yep. He definitely said kill giant ground sloths. I'm taking 2 drinks. That is just unbelievable. All right, I put that on the same level as when Stephen Meyer said that mammals didn't show up until the Eocene.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, how do you get to be that wrong, right? Like, okay, were ground sloths and Neanderthals contemporaneous for some of both of their existence? Yeah, but that doesn't mean they met each other. They were on opposite sides of the planet. There's no evidence of Neanderthals ever making it to America. And the Americas are where giant ground sloths lived. It's just... I don't know. I just don't know. Look, tell you what, Dr. Jackson, if you have amazing new evidence of Neanderthals in North America, let me know. Because, I mean, that would be awesome. That would be a really big deal.
That would be cool.
Yeah, it wouldn't overturn evolution, but it would be neat.
Mastodons or mammoths and things like that.
Yeah, mastodons and mammoths, sure, because those also lived in places like Europe and the Middle East.
Depiction of Neanderthal life now is more like this. And I did not get this from any creationist organization. I don't quote from creationists. I very rarely do.
Why would it matter?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why would it matter. These are literally just sites where we have found Neanderthals. Why would that differ on a creationist website?
Yeah, well, I mean,
Don't get it.
I have an answer. The creationists lie too much, so you couldn't trust their maps.
Bad maps.
I mean, literally. Okay, look. It's logically fallacious, technically, to say that anything coming from a young Earth creationist is likely to be false, or is going to be false for that reason. However, there's this thing called a heuristic, right? Heuristics are things that humans use to figure out what they're going to believe for things that usually don't matter too much when they don't have the time to actually do like a deep investigation, right? So, for instance, let's say that you're not you're not super up on things like comparative anatomy and medicine and things like that, right? And so you have a pet that seems to be not doing too well. So you take the pet to a vet, and the veterinarian says, "Oh, I'm diagnosing with this and this and this." Chances are that they're right, and the reason you can say that they're probably right is because this person's a veterinarian, and that's what they do. That's their expertise. Is that a fallacious reason to say they're right? Technically, yes. However, in your everyday life, you cannot investigate every little possible thing. So in some cases, you just go with expertise or known dishonesty as a heuristic. The thing is, young Earth creationists are wrong about almost everything they say about almost everything, almost all the time. So if you quote a young Earth creationist to me, I'm going to assume it's probably nonsense. And if it's important to me, I'll check. And then when I do, it's almost always nonsense. So, yeah. There's why you shouldn't quote young Earth creationists, unless you're just quoting them to tell people what the position of a young Earth creationist is because almost all of them are almost always wrong about almost everything, almost all the time. Which means, if you're a betting person, betting against the young Earth creationists is usually the right thing. Now, I mean that about things relevant to young Earth creation, right? If they tell you, like, oh, hey, I just got a new car, they're probably right about that. Anyway, here we go.
Out of it when I do. Here's a Neanderthal couple. Look, Shona, there's a star. They're still. We didn't have Facebook back then, so this is how they picked.
By the way, in case anyone's wondering, the video and the audio are wildly out of sync, and that was the case in the original video. And it's also the video is like in 2 frames per second or not, some nonsense. I don't know why.
Their mates, and look, there's a fire in a family. We know they did hunting parties. They were intelligent.
Yeah. No. The fact that our ideas about Neanderthal intelligence has been revised and behavior has been revised in the last 100 years is neither surprising nor a problem for evolution. Oh, Jackson, Dr. Charles Jackson is a doctor of the philosophy of science. Not science, philosophy of science, which, to be fair, is an important field. But
Stephen Meyer is too, fun fact.
Yeah, he is. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm just mixing them up. Charles Jackson is actually not a doctor of the philosophy of science. I mixed him up with Stephen Meyer. He's actually a doctor of education.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Intelligent and well organized and civilized people, made clothing and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
A species that originated in the tropics and is already, as we've all acknowledged, very intelligent, made coverings to keep themselves warm in their subarctic homes. That's so shocking. Yeah, that's probably also the reason that Homo sapiens first used it. The thing is, Neanderthals being very similar to, one of their most closely related species, Homo sapiens, is not a surprise, right? Just like it's not a surprise when you're like, hey, do you know that tigers and lions have very many behavioral similarities in things like grooming and scent marking? Yeah, I did. Because they're both cats in the same genus. Of course they do. Well, did you know they have very similar vocalizations? Also, yes. Because again, closely related species in the same genus. I don't know why this is a significant point that needs to be brought up.
I've got to get back here to read it. Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in Bristol, England. Neanderthals are often portrayed as more primitive, 2006. This has huge implications. The differences between Neanderthals and humans may have been much less than previously thought.
Look at that. Science changing its views, update to current information. The horror.
My golly.
Western European Neanderthals are, in fact, today's Western Europeans. 4% of modern...
No. Neanderthals are not modern Western Europeans. You're about to tell us why, Dr. Jackson.
Modern Europeans today are carrying Neanderthal DNA. We know because the Neanderthal Genome Project was completed.
Okay, no, it's not 4% of Europeans are carrying Neanderthal DNA. I'm taking a drink. This is basic. How do you get this wrong? It's closer to the average European has about 4%, and it's actually more like 0.5 to 5% of their genome is from Neanderthals. Right? It's not that 4% of Europeans, it's almost all Europeans have some Neanderthal DNA. And how much they have varies between about like 0.5% and like 5%. But guess what? If you're 5% something, that doesn't mean you're that thing, right? If I handed you a bar of metal and I said, hey, this is gold, and you looked at it and you're like, I don't know, man, it looks like iron. And I'm like, yeah, but it's 5% gold, so you should pay me the gold price for it. Even if I'm right that it's 5% gold, you would be insane to give me the price of actual gold for that weight. Because it's not gold, it's 5% gold. You can't just say that 5% of Europeans are Neanderthals or something like that. Like, how? I don't understand how you can read an article like this and get it this wrong. Okay, you know what? We're going to end this poll, and then we're going to start another poll. Okay. So first, 93% of you said that you had, or sorry, 92, I guess, said that you had an identical lifestyle to that of your great-great-grandparents. Well, given that I haven't seen any of your great-great-grandparents here on YouTube, I do not believe the other 7% of you. So that was out of 83 votes. So here's the next poll. All right, we're going to start a poll, and it's going to be, is Bad Jackson really this dumb, or is he just a liar? We're going to go with the options of dumb, liar, both, and I think he's right because I'm dumb. Get rid of a comma in there. All right, those are the options. Dumb, liar, both, and I think he's right because I'm dumb. There you go.
Seems to sum up all the options.
My goodness. If we want to talk about modern humans being stupider than ancient humans, I mean, maybe Dr. Charles Jackson has a point because he exists. He's evidence of really stupid modern humans.
Got him.
And we've been able to identify Neanderthal genes. I could tell you a whole lot more about that.
You know, okay, here's the thing, because we're going to take a break right after this. So, you know how Nathaniel Jeanson, another young Earth creationist who works for AIG, he thinks that Neanderthal genomes are unreliable. Does that mean that he doesn't believe studies indicating like percent admixture of Neanderthal DNA in modern Homo sapien populations in places like Europe and East Asia? Or just Asia generally, I suppose? Because that, I'd be curious to know about that. Because the thing is, Charles Jackson is right. We do know about these admixtures because we have the Neanderthal, genome. So, Also, David Durham has joined the channel at the level of amnio. So everybody, while we take a quick break so I can grab some more beer, why don't everyone who's a member already welcome David Durham with some tetrapod emojis, and we will be right back after these messages. There you go. Okay, we are back. Sorry, I did momentarily put up the wrong intermission because I still had my OBS set up for Power Rangers Jungle Beast, which you can catch ideally every other Wednesday, although it's more like monthly, honestly, over on Top Hats Off, my other channel. Also, we have a couple things to go over. One is we were gifted 5 memberships, that's it. Which means that Wayne, Gaffney, The Fallen, Trail Mix, Luigi Potter, and Marianne the Night Owl were all gifted subscriptions by Erechamion, and it also means that we're drinking 5 times. Ooh. All right. Also, it was asked, I don't remember who or by whom, how much more for the tutu. The tutu is a fair bit more. We are 46, basically, away from the feathers, which puts us at 120 away from the tutu. So we're most of the way there to feathers, but we are quite a ways from the tutu. But hey, we've got a whole another hour for 120 to come in, so you never know. All right, here we go.
So now here's a museum display, and that's a little fuzzy. I'm sorry, it was like a very small picture.
Yeah, don't expect to see what he's saying because, again, whoever uploaded this, I don't know if it was the people who made the film or the people who uploaded, but like, you're like 10 seconds off from audio and video. Video is way behind.
Homo sapiens neanderthalensis and Homo sapiens sapiens. We really don't look that much different. They had all of the qualities of being humans.
Look, the designation of Homo sapiens neanderthalensis has not been valid for like 30-something years. Like, it's just not a thing.
Yeah.
When, like, okay, if you're like 40, then maybe when you were in high school that was reasonable.
They
So
have
they are
their
now
genomes
classified as
now.
Homo
It's
sapiens.
definitely not valid.
Yeah, no, it's definitely not. There was a time when it was a reasonable position to take. It's just not now.
Cro-Magnon, they've just given up on that. Heidelberg Man, they
Because
classified them.
they're just because Cro-Magnon is like the most arbitrary name for humans has existed.
It
It literally just means not just anatomically modern humans. Anatomically modern humans between about 60,000 years ago and about 12,000 years ago.
And also, isn't it specifically in Europe?
It may be, but still, it's so ridiculously arbitrary.
Yes. All right, well, I'm going to take
It's
a drink.
so pointless.
Then also, Too Young to Feel This Old for $50. Thank you so much. It says, for the feathers, the tutu, and because you deserve it. Thanks for everything you do. Thank you, Too Young to Feel This Old. I really appreciate that because that is quite a big deal. So I really do. So right now, that has put us past the point for feathers. Next video I make will be feathery. I will have feathers. And that puts us 71 away from the tutu. So there you go. We are now well more than halfway to the tutu. I really appreciate that.
As archaic Homo sapiens. Does that answer your
We're
question?
archaic Homo sapiens, though.
Yeah, no, Neanderthals are not archaic Homo sapiens.
Was it your question? Oh, yeah. Does that answer your question? Okay. You got my little speech.
He was
about we're
talking
getting
so
dumber.
long, he forgot who asked the question.
Okay, look. Oh, okay, this is the previous slide that he was actually talking about. Okay, sorry. Never mind. We'll just keep going.
We have a question over there on John's side.
By the way, guys, I didn't watch this ahead of time to know how bad the audio-video desync was going to be, so sorry about that. But, like, I was going to say we're almost done, but we still have 23 minutes. We've pushed through, like, 4 minutes in the last, like, hour. Jackson, we're gonna both die doing this. You know that, right? We're both gonna be dead in our graves
A hope is
And we'll
sooner
still
rather
have-
than later, my fair dapper.
We'll still have 15 minutes left of this one speech.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I think she fell asleep.
Oh, my turn.
Yes.
We have a lot of things that are happening in Southwest Alaska. We're
Is that like the islands?
The illusion.
Yeah.
people will be flying from Dillingham to their homes like Togiak, and all of a sudden,
I have no idea where those are. I don't think Jackson does either.
That's fake. Those are fake words. that
I
she's
bet
saying.
they're
Those
not.
aren't real places.
They're probably like Inuit or Aleut or something like that.
they see this real tall creature just about reaching a plane.
Oh my goodness. We're doing sea monsters, guys. Buckle up. We're doing sea monsters. Oh, thank you, random lady from Alaska. Thank you so much. Oh, that's going to be awesome. I want to know what Charles Jackson has to say about kaiju-sized sea monsters in Alaska. Yes. I have no idea why it's supposed to support young Earth creationism, but I so want to talk about kaiju sea monsters. Fun fact, I've been to the ocean in around Alaska. It sucks. I don't recommend it.
They are called to us Bigfoot.
Bigfoot.
Wait. That's not a kaiju sea monster. Darn it, just Bigfoot. That's a huge downgrade. I got so excited. But Apocalypse Meow has been a tetrapod for 1 month and has sent a Godzilla, a Murphy, and a Mothra, and we will drink for the Godzilla and the Murphy. Oh, sorry, and the Mothra. Murphy is awesome, but technically not a drink trigger.
Yes, or Sasquatch, or
Did you just say Sasquatch? Is Sasquatch sus? Goodness.
We don't know any other names, just Bigfoot. And there's some evidences of, like, when we put out the whitefish net traps during the winter, you know, they pull that out and they eat all the fish.
Jessica, who's been a member for 2 months at the level of Amniote, says, homesick, playing along with a hot toddy. Thanks for the entertainment, guys. Well, thank you for... Sorry, I got a little cough. Thank you for supporting the channel, and I hope that you feel better, and apparently that I do too, because now I've suddenly developed a cough, apparently. Enjoy the hot toddy, it does sound nice. I say that like it's cold or something here. Like, man, it's Tucson. The AC was on in the car today. Like, yeah, December 6th.
It's like in the 70s here too.
Well, it's actually in the 50s Fahrenheit here right now, but like, man, when it's a clear day in Tucson, even if it's like 60 degrees out, if you're sitting in a car with the sun beating on your chest, it gets hot.
Yeah.
All of the fish.
well,
And they found a colony of them in Southeast Alaska where they pull the, Southeast Alaska is more,
I thought we were talking about Southwest Alaska. So now are we talking about like that little like, why does it exist panhandle? I guess so.
like, they're what we call the Christmas trees, evergreens. They're bigger than ours in Southwest, but they
Okay, hold on. Is she saying Bigfoot is taller than an evergreen tree?
That's kind of what it sounds like.
Because that's a new one on me. That's not quite kaiju levels, but like, that's bigger than the trolls from Troll Hunter. Which, by the way, if you guys haven't seen Troll Hunter, after this, you should, unless you're going to join me in my Discord for Power Rangers, because we do Power Rangers watch parties most days, you should go watch Troll Hunter. It's amazing.
pull them out through their roots, and they turn the tree upside down with the roots on top to mark their territories.
Also a new one. This is amazing. These are all new, brand new parts of Bigfoot lore I've never even heard of. Also, Too Young to Feel This Old says, for real, I'm super grateful for all your help with helping me realize the lunacy of the beliefs I used to hold growing up. Channels like yours are far more important than any realize. Well, I'm really glad. I mean, I really am. Because look, I mean, I'm here to entertain, but I'm also here to help, right? I want to help make people smarter, happier, I don't know, have an easier time doing chores. If I can help, I want to. So I'm really glad the channel's helping. And I'm also very, very grateful for your generosity, because it's things like this that keep the channel open.
But they will not come near the humans. They found a lodge near our village in Guihluk, but they're not coming near us. But they're real tall, because
Yeah, even Dr. Charles Jackson is like, what's the question?
I would love to see his face while she's like explaining the giant Bigfoot.
This is great. This is actually really entertaining. Like, this is like cool new lore for, like, you know, Bigfoot cryptozoological studies. Like, all those people who were out doing like the Bigfoot hunter shows, like, okay, but have you found the Bigfoot that's like 40 feet tall? Because if not, yeah, you're not trying hard enough. Get yourself to Alaska.
you know, planes fly, small planes, float planes. They fly, you know, like, I don't know what the elevation is, but they just about reach, because my cousin was in the plane.
Okay.
And he's the one that told us when my...
A brother, cousin?
Okay, now I'm gonna be fair here. A lot of Native American languages use vastly different kinship systems than English, which makes it very hard to translate the terms. And
look, Dapper, I understand.
And this is clearly a
came
native
from
woman.
Alabama.
No, I mean, regardless of interbreeding, many kinship systems in languages native to the Americas are vastly different, which makes figuring out how to translate between them confusing for native speakers of either language into the other. And this woman is clearly a speaker of a native language as her first language. So I'm going to give her all the passes on mixing up kinship terms, because I've looked into some Native American kinship systems, and I couldn't fluidly translate between them. So, and yeah, as Tyler West says, this sounds more like King Kong than Bigfoot. Like, Bigfoot's literally doing the King Kong thing where he reaches up to the airplanes to grab them.
Yes.
That was the actual...
The beast.
That was the actual inspiration for King Kong. It was actually Alaskan Bigfoot.
Father died when we got together. And the other thing is, besides Ozzy and Harry, they should come and interview us. In 1975, we saw our first lights. In 1985, we had our first telephones. And as of August, we have running water and flush toilets.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yay! Hey, you know what? That's an actual awesome thing that they now have, so congratulations. It is not easy to get all that infrastructure up to remote areas, especially in the Arctic, where you're digging through permafrost and there's no permanent roads. So that's not any shade on those communities. That's awesome that they finally have that stuff.
I was actually, speaking of, I was watching one of Professor Dave's videos the other day, which he did like a mini series on lies that charlatans tell about water.
Oh yeah, I think I did see that one.
One of the things that he mentions, which kind of puts it in perspective, is like ability to just flip a switch or press a button and have like virtually infinite water,
right.
Clean drinking water, is a marvel. It is like barely short of miraculous that we have this.
Oh yeah, I mean, throughout most of human history, getting enough water was a big task, and you were not guaranteed to succeed.
So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Look, absolutely no shade thrown on that. That's an unironically amazing thing that such a remote community now has the amenities of modern life, because it's a huge quality of life improvement.
So you come from a rural area.
Yeah, I'd say
now,
so.
a lot of people swear that Bigfoots are real. People swear that...
Is it big foots or big feet? I like big feet.
Big toes is actually the plural.
Oh, okay.
That the
Maybe it's like Big's foot, like cul-de-sac.
Big's foot.
What? Like cul-de-sac, you know?
Loch Ness Monster's real, Atlantis is out there, the Bermuda...
Oh, come on, man. He just immediately is like, ha, this is like believing in Atlantis. This is a woman who really believes this stuff. You're not going to get to her by just mocking her beliefs, especially when she says a close family member had a dangerous personal encounter with them. That's not how you go about this. Okay, let's continue on, but I do not like how he's starting out with this, because this is clearly a woman who is sincerely believing something. Now, granted, it's just as silly as believing the Earth is 750,000 times younger than it really is. But hey, that's something that Dr. Charles Jackson believes, so like it's not like he has a high ground to stand on compared to her.
Triangle, again, aliens and UFOs.
Yep, just going on.
And the Mokele Mbembe, which is supposed to be a sauropod dinosaur.
He doesn't believe in that? That's really funny because like a lot of young Earth creationists have whole arguments about how like Mokele Mbembe and the Loch Ness Monster, which even if it's real, is not a dinosaur, so whatever. And you know,
that's what you think, but I know that it is real, and it's actually a giant penguin. It is a dinosaur.
I would love that, honestly. I want that to be true. But and the other thing is that like there's some other like sundry cryptids that are, if you close one eye and mostly close the other one, is kind of dinosaur-ish.
Right.
And you could like say, "Oh no, man, that's just a triceratops or something." It's like, no, it's not actually.
My favorite is when people try to say that, I think it's Algonquin or something, water panther is a dinosaur, and it's like, man, this has like buffalo horns and like iguana spikes and scales and the body of like a mountain lion. That's not a good description of any dinosaur.
And it's like, we joke about this, but at the same time, they literally do think the leopard, like the long neck leopard, is a sauropod.
Oh yeah, the long neck lion from Egypt. Yeah.
The long neck lion, that's what it is. Yeah, it's like, broski, it has paws and a lion
little
head.
ears and little spots for whiskers and a cute little lion nose. You could boop it.
It's a cat. Long neck. That's what it is, man. It's a sauropod. Like, no, stop it.
Seriously. All right, let's see how Dr. Charles Jackson continues on with being incredulous about cryptozoology, despite believing things that are far more absurd. Like let's be honest. What's more absurd? Unobserved ape in North America, or all of science is wrong? Because that's what young Earth creationism entails.
We've talked about how before, like, there's nothing in principle that prevents apes from living in North America. I mean, like, from living wild and.
Right. I was going to say lots of apes live in North America.
Oh, yeah, they're all over the place. Looks out window. No. Yeah, but like, there's nothing in principle that prevents apes from, you know, prevented apes from crossing the Bering Strait land bridge in the past.
Yeah.
Coming to North America, living here. Like, there's nothing.
Yeah. Or like, if
inherently crazy about that.
If you release a sufficiently sized population of like gorillas or chimpanzees in certain parts of North America, I'm sure they could do fine. Like, if you left them in, like, you know, someplace nice and, like, you know, subtropical, like, maybe, like, southern Florida or, like, the wetter parts of Texas. They'd probably do it. I mean, macaques are doing just great in Florida right now, so...
That's true, yeah.
And especially if you had, like, something adapted for, like, colder weather, which, you know, we know apes can do because we've done it in the past. Like, yeah, there's nothing impossible about the idea of Bigfoot. It's just that there's literally no evidence, right? There's nothing that actually indicates in anything close to a strong manner the actual presence of such animals. But, like, it's not impossible. It's a perfectly reasonable idea that there could be such a thing. Just there's no evidence for it. So I don't believe that it's true. And it's like, oh, but what about the scat or the hair or the footprints? Well, footprints are often faked, and when they're not, they're usually pretty ambiguous. And all the scat and hairs come back with DNA testing saying it's known animals like bears. So I guess if you just want to say Bigfoot just is the American brown bear, then I guess Bigfoot's real, but also that's not the claim that's usually being made.
Yeah.
In the Congo of Africa, the ropens, live pterodactyls flying around, pow pow.
You know, okay, take a drink for the ropens or pterodactyls. Because the thing is, if you actually look at the accounts, they don't even line up with pterodactyls. So we're going to talk about it a little bit. Okay, so first, ropens are supposed to be pretty big and have pretty long tails, which already is like no pterosaur, right? Now these are not clades. These are like morphotypes that pterosaurs fall into. So don't pretend that these are monophyletic groups. But there's pterodactyloid and rhamphorhynchoid pterosaurs. Rhamphorhynchoid pterosaurs have long tails and they are relatively small. It's not entirely known why they retain such long tails for a fairly long time, but it's thought that perhaps it aided in stability because many of them otherwise would not have been terribly stable flyers. Despite the fact that the tail also adds a huge amount of drag, it might be worth it if you were otherwise too unstable. Okay, then there's pterodactyloid pterosaurs. These are the ones that grew huge. This includes Quetzalcoatlus, Pteranodon, most of the big pterosaurs that you're familiar with. Those had short, stubby little tails and were very, well, from medium to big, right? So this includes things like Deinocheirus, and I'm not just going to sit here and name pterosaur genera. You get the idea. I was about to just keep going. Okay, fine. Well, like Nyctosaurus or Thalassodromeus or, Tapahara.
I'm partial to Darwinopterus. Like it.
I mean, I'm a big fan of Neurognathus myself because it's adorable. So, yeah. If you want to see the cutest pterosaur, look up at Neurognathus or in Neurognathids as a group. But anyway, so on that grounds, the ropin doesn't really match. Also, the ropin is said to not have hind feet, which, spoiler alerts, all known pterosaurs had hind feet. In fact, it's not even clear how you could launch yourself into the air without hind feet, because while pterosaurs primarily use their front feet to launch themselves into the air, in order to get into a position where they could do so, which is like sub-erect in terms of their spine, like they needed back feet to brace against the ground with. So there's that. Also, the ropin is said to be bioluminescent, which there's no good reason to think pterosaurs were. They would be the only known bioluminescent tetrapods ever. But I guess we can't say for certain they weren't bioluminescent. Just no reason to think they were. Also, the ropin is supposed to have poison breath, which there's no good reason to think that pterosaurs have, as that's never been observed in any animal ever. Also, their favorite food is supposed to be already buried human corpses, which is a really weird food source for a flying animal who could just get uncovered carrion from just, like the jungle. Like, why would you go and bother to dig up a grave? So, yeah, this the idea that the ropin is as a pterosaur is entirely an invention of mostly young Earth creationists, interestingly enough, cryptozoologists who went down and investigated. People like, oh, that was almost a Godzilla. Well, we'll drink for Godzilla anyway. He made a quick little yip sound, I think. Okay, here we go.
New Guinea, but none of that is science yet. We got to have observations and data and something recorded we can bring back to civilization and show people. It doesn't mean they're not all real. It just means it's not science yet. And there's a whole field called...
There's Godzilla. Well, another drink for Godzilla, but whatever. It also means it is time for me to open up a new beer, and we're going back to the Belgian White.
Ooh.
And then we're going to have some Belgian potatoes. That's not true. I'm not actually going to do that, but those would be French fries, in case you're wondering. Because French fries were invented in the French-speaking part of Belgium.
Cryptozoology, which means like hidden in a crypt. Cryptozoology is hidden animal life. And some of these could be mythical, some of these could be real, and a lot of...
Hey, he's right about that. We'll take a drink. The first got something right drink. It only took us 75% of the episode to get there. Benthoven, no relation, says, push for the tutu for $10, but then also includes a Godzilla emoji, which means we take another drink. Thank you very much. And also, that puts us $61 away from the tutu.
Myths have their anchors in something was real. The manatees in the Caribbean, the Caribbean manatees now extinct.
You mean sea cows? Do you mean sea cows there, Dr. Jackson? I'm taking another drink for not knowing that there's more than one kind of Serenian on the earth. Like,
He also said Caribbean manatees are extinct. As
far as I know, that's not true, which is why I think he's talking about sea cows.
Is he thinking of the Caribbean monk seal? It is extinct.
That would be
extinct.
even worse though, because that's not even a Serenian, that's a pinniped.
That's like the only thing I can think of. Is like Caribbean in the name that is aquatic has gone extinct recently.
Well, I mean, I don't think
of any species of Serenian that fit that description. I don't know.
Well, I mean, so there are sea cow species that have gone extinct recently.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. There's, well, okay, so I think he might be thinking of Stellar's sea cow.
It was not Caribbean.
It was not. But also, what other options do we have?
There's so the West Indian manatee,
which is not in the Caribbean, is it? Oh wait, West Indian. Yeah, that might be. He might have been right. If he was, I'll take a drink.
No, it's still around though.
Oh.
It's native to the Caribbean and eastern U.S. all the way down to northern Brazil, but it's still around. They're vulnerable, but they're still here.
Huh.
They're manatees.
Well, okay, so we have some options. He might be talking about a recently extinct seal, which is dumb, not even a Serenian. He might be talking about Stellar sea cow, which is extinct but didn't live in the Caribbean. Or he might be talking about the West Indian manatee, which isn't extinct, so that's still dumb. And I don't know which one it is, but all of the options are dumb.
Yeah, there are no good options here,
yeah.
It appears.
So I tell you what, Dr. Jackson, if you watch this, email me which dumb thing you mean, so next time I'll know. Just let me know. And if you don't know, that makes it worse, buddy. All right, here we go.
The Florida manatee is in order Sirenia, named after the sirens. You know,
why does he pronounce? Does he put the emphasis on that syllable?
The same reason he says genome. He just likes to pronounce words the way he wants to pronounce them. But we're taking a drink for Godzilla. Okay.
The mermaids that sat on the rock and make sailors sail towards the rock and crash.
Okay, so the sirens weren't explicitly mermaids; they were water spirits. But like the idea that they were like lower half fish, upper half like woman, not really in original Greek. Although you could depict them that way, being water spirits, their form wasn't super set. So like, there's a connection, right? I'm not pretending there isn't a connection, but you can't just equate like Greek sirens with like early modern and late medieval European mermaids. They're not the same thing. There's a through line, don't get me wrong, but like it's just not the same. So anyway. Sorry, Jackson, did you have something?
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay.
So they named that after mermaids because
kinda.
You know, they thought maybe those were mermaids sitting on the rocks. You know, so there's a whole bunch of stuff I could say about that. I think it'd be cool if the Loch Ness Monster was a plesiosaur.
Dude, answer the thing about Bigfoot, man. She didn't ask about the Loch Ness Monster or mermaids or the Bermuda Triangle, man. This is annoying, man. I'm taking a drink for how, like, answer the question. It's the Q&A section. That is the minimum that a speaker should do in a Q&A session. It's why I don't watch too many political debates, because the questions never get answered. other questions get answered than were asked. Taking this drink. If you ever want to annoy me, wait till I ask you a question and then go off on a long, dumb tangent about something I didn't ask you about.
What do you plan to do about taxes, Senator? Well, you know it has been said that I like to eat my steak medium rare, and I would like to set the record straight on this one.
Exactly.
That'd be great if there's a whole little school of plesiosaurs there in Loch Ness. That's pretty deep water.
It's not nearly big enough, no matter how deep it is right at this point, to support a school of plesiosaurs. The volume just isn't that big. And also, the lake is just not that biodiverse, or like also just doesn't have the biomass to support a viable population of plesiosaurs. But you know, to be fair... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish first.
Oh, I was going to say, to be fair, I don't think Charles Jackson is about to argue in favor of plesiosaurs, so...
There was a study done a few years ago now on eDNA.
Yes.
The Loch Ness.
Well,
And
it did find an unknown species, though.
I don't remember that. I remember they found, like, the weird thing was, like, some eels. There were some very large eels, and that's
the unknown species.
Okay, gotcha, okay. And they were like, okay, that's weird. We didn't expect that, but, no plesiosaurs.
The Enbead asks, has it ever had access to the ocean? I'm assuming he means Loch Ness. As far as I know, it has never had access to the ocean that would allow a large aquatic organism. But, I mean, it does flow to the ocean, and ocean seals have been observed in the loch. So, like, kinda, but not the kind of access that would allow a large reptile. The kind of access that would allow medium-sized, semi-aquatic, well, mostly aquatic mammals in. Which, by the way, how is the seal not just widely touted as an actual current transitional organism? Because remember that time when Darwin was like, I see no problem with a bear becoming something as monstrous as a whale? I'm slightly paraphrasing here. Seals are just that. They're just bears on their way to being whales. Like, that's what that is. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, my apologies, Embiid. Sorry about that.
Jacques Cousteau actually took a little submarine down there to try to find him. That would be cool. It'd be interesting, but all those ideas are interesting. But they're not science till we catch one or till we actually go visit. Maybe we could go visit a colony, the colony of Bigfoots, like Jake Gasuli visiting the Na'vi on the planet Pandora.
This is more just random nerd cred from Dr. Charles Jackson. I don't get why he does it.
I refuse to believe that anyone remembers the characters from Avatar.
I remember Jake Sully. I remember Neytiri, his love interest, and Sigourney Weaver. Those are the characters in Avatar.
I mean, okay, like the fact that Sigourney Weaver was in there, but...
That's her character.
Okay.
Her character is named Sigourney Weaver. Trust me.
Yes.
That's probably not true. Pretty sure she had a name.
Hi, I'm Sigourney Weaver.
You know what? From now on, I'm going to take away Charles Jackson's nerd cred card because it's always cringy, unless he knows the language involved in the media. So when he uses Star Trek stuff, I want him to learn Klingon. And when he talks about this, I want him to learn Avatar. Now, that's not a standard I would hold anyone else to. I just don't like Charles Jackson, so I feel like randomly being a gatekeeping asshole specifically to him and no one else. Screw that guy. Dick. Not just a dick, he's a dangerous person, right? Because as we saw in the last video that we watched, he's just giving out medical advice that's horribly dangerous to the human species, like as a whole.
And then get to know them, like we've gotten to know the great apes. I mean, Jane Goodall went and lived there with the mountain apes and stuff like that. But until we actually can verify it...
Yeah.
Mountain apes.
I mean, he makes a good point, right? Like, gorillas at one point were a cryptid, basically. They were a rumored species that most people were like, that sounds fake. But it turns out they were real. But he is right that, yeah, the way that we found out that they were real is that, like, you know, found them. They're in zoos now.
I mean...
Oh, the NBead says that Bernice Weaver's name was Grace. I don't know. Really think they just made up a whole new name for a person? That's really confusing.
Doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. You gotta... Like, why would you just make up a whole name? Like, Sigourney Weaver is a weird name, but it's a perfectly good name. I just say it's weird because, like, how many Sigourneys have you heard of ever in your life?
Like,
Yeah, one. Exactly. All right, here we go. Also, by the way, Sigourney Weaver is the narrator for The Dark Crystal Age of Innocence. That's another good show.
It's still not science till we have observations that are reported and all that. Some of these things might be true and some of them might not be, but not science till we have data.
You know what? I'm taking a drink for getting that right because, well, he said it in a silly way and it was, I think, needlessly condescending. He is basically right about cryptozoology. Until you have the physical evidence, there's no reason to believe any of it. No, unless you've yourself had a convincing experience, right? Like, I'm not going to say you didn't have the experience you did. But it might be convincing for you, but that doesn't make it convincing for me, right? Oh, and Dr. Tapioca Weasel has gifted 1 Dapper Dinosaur membership, so we take a drink for that. And it was Tyler West who received it. Congratulations, Tyler West. Guys who are already in the membership, send those tetrapod emojis. All right, here we go.
One more? Okay. I'm a fan, and
They just had one more? There's like 18 minutes of this left. Is this just going to be the no audio video catching up for the next 18 or whatever minutes? Because that would be amazing.
It'd be really funny. It'd be funny if they like left the camera on while they're like cleaning up things.
We get to see the janitor come in. That'd be so cool. Too Young to Feel Us Old says, I can read Aurebesh from Star Wars. I agree that for Bad Jackson, he should have to learn it before he's able to reference Star Wars. See, the thing, gatekeeping for the win, but very specifically against people like Charles Jackson, who are known bad actors. Like, if you're just some guy who happens to like Star Wars and you don't know all the crazy nerdy stuff, that doesn't invalidate you as a Star Wars fan. If you're an asshole, it does. That's my rule on gatekeeping. Only gatekeep the people who are already should be excluded for other legitimate reasons. Otherwise, no, it's a dick thing to do. But I'm okay with being a dick to people like Charles Jackson. Because he's a dick to everyone else. Also, Fearmonger, welcome to the Tetrapod. Guys, thank you very much. And that means that we are at have more Tetrapod emojis to welcome the Fearmonger to the channel membership. Also, I need to update my little calculation for how close we are, because I am bad at doing that. All right, we're 56 away from the 2-2. Here we go.
some of the questions.
Keanu points out that's less gatekeeping than being and more being a bouncer. Yeah, that's fair. I'm prepared to bounce Charles Jackson from nerdery. Also, here's a fun thing. Aurebesh is not only canon in Star Wars, it's canon in Power Rangers too, because Aurebesh was used in Power Rangers SPD, which was produced during the time when Fox Kids was producing Power Rangers, which meant they had a license to all the Star Wars stuff. And we'll take a drink for Godzilla. By the way, though, actually did zoom in on the Power Rangers Aurebesh. And take another drink. And it was not legible given the standard Aurebesh to Latin alphabet mapping. Because Aurebesh is just a substitution cipher for the Latin alphabet, right? It's nothing fancy. Which also means that, like, you could learn Aurebesh in like a day if you tried. It's not that hard.
Questions I have regarding the whole evolutionary thing is just an intellectual challenge I've always wondered about, which is the idea that not only one member of a species has to cross the species barrier, but it has to find a mate who has likewise crossed the species.
Oh my. Jackson, I'm going to take a drink. You go over this.
This is some Ray Comfort stuff.
Mm-hmm. Please proceed, because I don't want to.
it's always the male first, but, mirroring Adam, right?
Of course.
Okay, so typically when we talk about species, one of the most common definitions of species for eukaryotic species is the Mayer biological species concept. It says that a population is an interfertile a species is an interfertile population, basically. And they have producing fertile offspring. So no individual crosses that barrier on their... Well, okay. That's not entirely true. That can happen. But when that happens... In species where that happens, if that does occur and they are not selfing one way or another, like if they're plants and they can fertilize themselves, or if they are parthenogenetic, if they can't do either of those things, they just die. Because, they can't breed with anybody else. They've basically had a lethal mutation.
I mean, as far as evolution is
They're
concerned,
done.
yeah. Even if they actually have a long life, it doesn't matter.
Right, exactly. It is, in effect, a lethal mutation. When mutations are typically of such a small nature, because the larger an effect mutation has, the more likely you are to screw something up, and there's math to back that up, going back to the 1930s. You just have these small mutations, and these small mutations may ever so slightly change your physiology in one way or another, but it's not going to be very large. If it is, can't interbreed with anybody else, well then those are bad mutations. Organisms do achieve a new species when you have a population that can then, say, split into subpopulations, which are then separated by geography or ecology or what have you, or behavior. Then they're going to accrue mutations that happen to make them incompatible eventually with the parental population. So what they've erected is a series of morphological, genetic, developmental differences that make them incompatible with members of the parental population. They achieve it as a population, as when these individuals are mutating, and these mutations are beneficial, and then they spread through the population, or through genetic drift if they're neutral, and that can also cause species barriers to interbreeding. Basically, one way or another, these mutations spread through the whole population, so that everybody is evolving in lockstep with each other. Right? It's all these lineages together. It's not, oops, John became a new species, and then Mary also became a new species.
And fortunately, they both became the same new species.
Right.
Yeah, now,
no, that's just not how that works.
Are there examples of current populations with limited interfertility that we could say are in the process of becoming separate biological species? Maybe we might even term different species today based on other species concept, like morphospecies or phylogenetic species or ecospecies.
Sure. I mean, the Insatina salamanders, or the famous ring species. There are what are called agamic species complexes, where you basically get a whole bunch of, you get all these different hybrids cross mating with each other, and you get this continuum of morphological or genetic features, so that if any become allopatric for whatever reason, they could all start become a separate species.
One of my favorite examples is actually Panthera leo and Panthera tigris, the lion and the tiger, who can produce fertile female hybrids, but not fertile male hybrids, meaning that they have limited ability to interbreed successfully.
Yeah, that's Haldane's rule.
Which, if you were to continue their separate evolution for long enough, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't become completely incapable of producing fertile offspring, and eventually offspring at all.
Yeah, the Haldane's rule states that typically the homogametic sex is going to be the fertile, is more likely to be the fertile one, I should say. Which So for XY organisms,
Female tends.
males are right. The
Oh, yeah,
females
males.
are XX, and so the males are XY. So the males are more likely to
Be infertile.
be sterile. Whereas with the WZ system, I think it's
Which birds use.
ZZ. I think is the
Yeah, I believe ZZ is male.
ZZ is male, and so it's the males who, in that case, would be the fertile ones, whereas the
Also,
WZ would be the.
Many snakes also use that, which is why when things like boa constrictors, pythons reproduce parthenogenically, they produce all males, whereas when lizards like whiptails reproduce parthenogenically, females. Why there are whole populations of whiptail lizards with no males, but why when a single python manages to get to, like, say, an island, it can on its own produce a breeding population of male and female.
Yeah, the thing about sex chromosomes are like extremely labile, which is kind of cool. What basically defines an XY system is having XY chromosome system or sex determination system just means you have a male determining region. It's everyone's female until genetic switch is flipped that makes the XY guys male.
Yeah, you express.
Whereas for WZ, it's backwards.
Yeah.
You have a female expression system. So there's like nothing inherently different about sex chromosomes from autosomes. Nothing inherently different about it. It's just DNA. It's just a matter of where you have that gene which is doing the sex determination. And for lots of organisms, mostly for invertebrates, what genes are doing that can change very, very rapidly the species. So,
Yeah. You're roboting a little bit, by the way.
I'm sorry. There's a really
forgive
cool
you.
paper called like Exploring the Envelope, which is about these researchers who changed the sex determination system in like Caenorhabditis elegans. Basically subjected them to a bunch of mutations and then just like completely changed how they do sex determination, which is pretty wild.
Yeah. By the way, we did kind of cover this, but I'll go back over it. Sir Equinox asks, how can parthenogenesis produce male offspring? Where does the Y chromosome come from? The answer is nowhere.
There isn't one.
Because females have this different sex chromosomes in WZ populations, which means that when they undergo parthenogenesis, they produce two kinds of embryos, or zygotes, really. One is the kind that is homozygous for the female determination chromosome, which auto-terminates, right? Because there aren't enough genes on that chromosome. Just like if you're if you're conceived with no X chromosome and a Y chromosome, you're not making it. You might make a few divisions, but that's about it. But if you're homozygous for both male chromosomes, you develop as a normal male. Also, Dr. Tapioca Weasel gifted 1 membership to the Dabber Dinosaur channel, which was given to Pseudo-Didact, so we will take a drink. Welcome to the channel membership, Pseudo-Didact. New members, by the way, make sure you connect your Discord to your YouTube account. So that way, you can come hang out in Discord and get access to things like I'll post links to early access videos, come and hang out for after shows, stuff like that. Okay, here we go.
Bear in such a way as to either breed to true, or it has to be able to breed back across the species barrier which it has crossed. And at some point that becomes a little bit difficult for me to get my head around that happening as many times it has to have.
It has to have happened none times for the most part. With like polyploidy, it's common enough in those organisms that have frequent polyploidy that it's usually not a barrier. Because like, if you're like a plant who just has a whole genome duplication, so now instead of diploid, you're quadruploid, there's probably someone else who's done that somewhere else in the environment, so it's not too big of a deal. Also, according to the biological species concept, there are actually gastropods who freely switch species based on single point mutations, because a point mutation can actually affect the direction of torsion in the embryo, which determines things like which way the shell curves in snails, but also which side of the body the anus and penis are on. And unless they're on the same side, you can't actually mate as snails, because snails actually line up, so their penises inseminate each other. When they're on opposite sides of the body, they can't, which means you can have a single point mutation and suddenly your offspring is now in a different species that's almost identical.
Okay.
That's with the biological species concept. With other species concepts, we don't have to call those separate species.
Well, okay. Wouldn't that just be I think I would just say that's a stable polymorphism.
Yeah,
in that
but the thing is,
population.
because young Earth creationists love the biological species concept to the point that they pretend it's the only one.
Well, I mean, that's just bacteria don't exist, I guess.
Well, yeah, but like by the definition that creationists love the most, that's organisms that can just flip flop from generation to generation into two different species. I think that's a silly way to interpret it, but they're the ones who are obsessed with the biological species definition, not me.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of whack. There's also a fun fact with asexual versus sexual in like rotifers is subject to like Mendelian inheritance. Whether you have the trait to be sexual, to reproduce sexually or asexually, switch from generation to generation.
Interesting.
That's another case where it'd be like, yep, nope, all of a sudden we're a different species now. Sorry, we can't interbreed with our mental population. Oh, guess we can again. So we're not the same species.
I also like rotifers because it's like an entire phylum that doesn't show up until the Cenozoic, which throws a wrench into the whole like idea that God created the phyla during the Cambrian.
I posed that on Twitter the other day. I said, are there any ID proponents who will defend like flatworms appeared in the Jurassic?
Right.
I had one of them say, I had one person, it was Fuzzrana, who was like, I don't understand what you're asking.
Oh,
kind of
come on,
explained,
Fuzz.
and he was like, okay, that's an interesting point.
And then that's
kind of it.
Yeah, look.
I was like, yeah, that is an interesting point. You are correct.
Overall, I sort of have a soft spot for Fuzz because like he's not a jerk, and like
He's a good guy. I like him.
like, and he's not doing things like advocating for dangerous medical treatments like Charles Jackson, or just beating his spouse like Kent Hovind, who I will remind you is still a convicted sex offender, or not sex offender, domestic abuser. Sorry. As far as I know, he's not even been accused of any sex crimes. So, apologies to Kent, which is one of the few times I'll ever apologize to him, because I couldn't. Well, I say I couldn't possibly have a lower opinion of Kent Hovind, but I missed a call from Cindy Lincoln today, so chances are I'll have a worse opinion of him after I get off the phone with her. But
my opinion has dropped even further with the Apologia video.
Oh yeah. Actually, Cindy
waiting for
Lincoln,
the other shoe to drop.
Cindy Lincoln, who is Kent's ex, in case you guys don't know, recently actually had a court date surrounding her motion for summary judgment against Kent Hovind in her lawsuit against him, because effectively he just has not bothered to show up to court, as far as I can tell. But guys, it is about time to wrap this up. We have been going for just about 2 hours. Jackson, what's coming up on your channel?
We are going to continue with the Ancestors' Tale series. Finally, finish the placental mammals.
Oh, wow.
Huzzah.
Are we going to get into like marsupial, like Theria broadly?
Oh, we are, in fact, and I have been reading, as I am wont to do, papers about the early evolution of Theria, and I thought it was pretty neat that the first characteristic separating the ancestral placental mammals from the ancestral metatherians is like just the shape of their teeth. That's kind of it.
Just like horses and rhinos.
Yeah, I mean it's like they're all small insectivores, and one lineage has teeth which are slightly more kind of one shape, and the other one has teeth which are slightly kind of a different shape. That's it.
What do you know? When you go back to the base of the family tree, the two sides that are now vastly different seem almost indistinguishable, just like evolution predicted, and just like we see in things like Sirenians and Proboscideans, Equids and Taperoids. I mean, it's all over the place. So, yeah.
It's almost like evolution happens or something.
Weird, right? All right.
Crazy.
Well, let's see. On this channel, coming up Thursday, the 8th, is the final episode of the Robert Carter video, in which case this one is entitled, Does Complexity Imply Design? With the sort of left off on its own. The answer to which, of course, is going to be no. But, I mean, tune in to see how we get there. That will be starting at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. If you're not in North America, do your own math. Sorry. Then, I don't know what I'm doing on Saturday, but it's going to be something. Then following that, on Tuesday the 13th, we should be doing Kent with Bent. Normally this would be a Kent with Bent day, but there was a potential scheduling conflict, which ended up not being a scheduling conflict, but I figured I would just go ahead and schedule a Jackson with Jackson just in case, to be safe, so that way I didn't have to worry about like scrambling at the last minute to change thumbnails and titles and whatever. Then the 20th, which would normally have been the 20th should be a Matt with Maddie, and the 27th, which normally would have been Jackson with Jackson, will just end up being Kent with Bent, unless something comes up where Bent can't make it, which I'm not foreseeing happening. So, yeah, so we're shifting around the December schedule a little bit. Do keep in mind, though, that this means that the 3rd of January should be Kent with Bent 100, unless something happens. So, we're going to have a 100th episode, so that'll be exciting. So yeah, I hope I see all of you on Thursday, the 8th. And Jackson, unless you've got anything else, I'm going to get out of here. All right. Bye, everybody, and I hope to see you all on Thursday. Thanks for watching, but before you go, I just want to say a special thank you to my channel members and my patrons, especially those pledging $20 or above. Bob Knob, Work in Progress, Benthovent, Tapioca Weasel, Denny5252, Ian Chen, Landon Knoll, Mabbity Babbity, McSpooks, Sphincter of Doom, The Venerable Bede, Elleron Teller, and Pat L. Dennis. As you probably know, YouTube is a very volatile platform, and from month to month my income on the channel can swing wildly. But the people you see on screen are directly supporting, so that I don't have to worry too much about that, and the channel can keep going as it is, and perhaps even improving. If you'd like to join this team, there are links below to join the channel or in the description to join the Patreon. The Patreon starts as low as $1 a month, and the channel memberships start as low as $1.99 a month. On Patreon, you can even get a discount for pledging annually. If you do decide to pledge, you'll get access to an exclusive Discord server just for channel supporters, as well as early access to all of my pre-recorded videos, often up to 2 months in advance. Higher tiers will unlock even better perks. Now, if an annual or monthly pledge isn't right for you, but you still want to support the channel, there is a merch store down in the description, as well as an Amazon wishlist, just for me. And if financial support isn't something you can or want to do, then if you still want to help out the channel, please just like and share these videos and make sure you comment on them. It really helps the channel out. Thanks again for watching.